From VOA, Learning English, this is the Science Report. A new study explores how rising temperatures helped influence a series of events that likely led to Syria's civil war. The findings were published in the Proceedings of the National Academies of Science. From 2007 to 2010, the researchers said, Syria suffered the worst drought in its recorded history. Climate scientist Colin Kelly wrote the Syrian study. He said crops failed and farm animals died across the country. He said the changing conditions forced an estimated 1.5 million people from their homes. They joined other refugees from the war. Temporary housing was built in Syrian communities for the new arrivals. These communities are where fighting first broke out in 2011. In their report, Colin Kelly and his team suggested that climate change made the drought more likely. They said that global warming made the drought more severe and that this set about a chain of events that led to the uprising. But Kelly said his team is not saying that global warming or climate change caused the uprising in Syria. Another report suggests climate change has made the extremely dry weather in the western United States more likely. Noah Diffenbaugh is a Stanford University climate scientist. He said that years of little rainfall are much more likely to produce severe drought if they occur with warm conditions. Diffenbaugh added that California has been in a very clear long-term warming period. In new research, he and other researchers said that has made droughts like the current one more likely. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans. From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Russia, the United States, and other countries are rushing to control the Arctic. The northern area is rich in natural resources. Russia has claimed a large part of the Arctic to develop resources, including oil. President Barack Obama recently approved drilling in an area under U.S. control. The project was the idea of the Shell Oil Company. Bill Arnold, a professor who once worked for Shell Oil Company, just returned from his latest fishing trip to Alaska. He says he is very interested in preserving the beauty of Alaska. And Mr. Arnold says he believes that new energy resources can be developed without harming nature. But many environmentalists disagree. They are against U.S. oil company projects in the Arctic, and they are not satisfied with President Obama's decision. The Arctic has become more accessible because polar ice is melting. Many scientists say climate change is causing the ice to melt. Climate change, they say, results from the use of fossil fuels like oil for vehicles. Mr. Arnold says studies have shown the Arctic has a lot of oil. He says it holds about 25% of the undiscovered oil and natural gas. Half of the Arctic area lies next to Russian territory. Russia sees the Arctic as important for its energy production. Mr. Arnold says Russia has a major military presence in the area. The United States, he points out, has a much smaller presence in the Arctic. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Strong economic growth in Asia has lifted millions of people out of poor economic conditions. But some environmental activists say it has also hurt the area's environment. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, met in Bangkok, Thailand recently for 3 days. The group urged Asian countries to work together to protect the environment. It warned that if they fail to do so, many plants and animals will become extinct or disappear forever. Asia produces about 40% of global economic activity and 2/3 of global growth. Experts say economic development has hurt the environment. More than 1,400 plants and animals are critically endangered. About 95% of Southeast Asia's coral reefs are at risk. And wetlands that once covered tens of thousands of kilometers of shorelines are disappearing faster than anywhere else in the world. Zheng Xinsheng is president of the IUCN. He says Earth's ecosystems are stressed and governments need to limit losses. He says we need to change how we produce and consume things. In Bangkok, the group urged governments, businesses, and non-government groups to work together to help the environment. IUCN officials say 2015 is a turning point for Asia. Their Asia Regional Director, Aben Marker Kabraji, says an urgent effort is needed. She says Asian countries need to take the energy that fueled 50 years of economic growth and use it to secure the well-being of both nature and humans. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Many science fiction stories tell about explorers arriving in a new world. The explorers use some kind of high-tech device to test for breathable air or signs of life. But here on Earth, science fiction is becoming reality through a new sampling technology called environmental DNA, or eDNA for short. Scientists can use it to identify rare or invasive species, study biodiversity, or estimate fish populations with just a little air or water. Ryan Kelly is an ecologist at the School of Marine and Environmental Affairs at the University of Washington in Seattle. He works in a laboratory there with other researchers. They study the genetic material released by living creatures. Ryan Kelly says he and his research team are studying water samples collected from Puget Sound. He says the cost of gene sequencing has gone down sharply in recent years. That makes DNA testing more widely available. Environmental DNA can be used in two ways. One is to identify the creatures that live in a certain place. The other is to confirm the presence or lack of a specific creature. Karen Goldberg heads the new eDNA lab at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. She is one of the first biologists in the northwestern United States to use the technology. She says it helps her study species that are hard to find. Karen Goldberg sees eDNA as a way to get answers more efficiently, safely, and with less destruction compared to traditional methods. A related research goal is to show how long environmental DNA can last and how far it can travel in different environments. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Scientists in the Philippines are working to change rice. They hope this will help solve one of the world's biggest health issues, the lack of vitamin A. It is called golden rice because the rice is yellow. It has been genetically changed or modified to produce beta-carotene, a form of vitamin A. Opponents of genetically modified foods, including the environmental group Greenpeace, do not like what the scientists are doing. But supporters of golden rice say it could help save as many as 2 million lives a year. The lack of the vitamin is the leading cause of childhood blindness. It is a public health problem in half of all countries, including many in Africa and Southeast Asia. Patrick Moore is an ecologist and former Greenpeace president. He supports production of golden rice. He says there should be no debate about the issue while children starve. Mr. Moore disagrees with Greenpeace on this issue. Responding to Mr. Moore's criticisms of its position, Greenpeace sent VOA an email. The group said, "Genetically engineered crops consist almost entirely of herbicide-tolerant and insect-resistant crops marketed to developing countries." It said this damages human health and hurts farmers and the environment. About 18 months ago, a group of anti-GMO activists destroyed test plantings of golden rice in the Bicol area of the Philippines. Some critics said Greenpeace organized the attack. The organization denied the accusations. The International Rice Research Institute has been experimenting with golden rice for 9 years. It says it has more work to do before humans can eat the rice. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.